I had to do whatever I had to do by any means necessary.
And that was in the boxing ring and at the business table.
I beat everybody in that division. They got to sit down now and do business with me. Marketable, still valuable. I'm going to get what I deserve.
Titles and Hall of Fame in the ring. Titles and Hall of Fame outside of the ring.
And you don't let no one rob you out of your, not dreams, your goals.
The champ, Bernard Hopkins, on the Pulse. Welcome back, everybody, to The Pulse. You know what we do every Monday, bringing in people who are doing amazing things, hear their successes, their challenges, people in all sorts of fields. And as you know, I know this is national, the national show, but I'm from Philly. I embrace Philly. I love Philly. So every chance I get to talk to people who are doing things nationally, but have the Philly roots, I love doing that. And the champ is here. He is a Hall of Famer, the champion, the oldest champ ever. Bernard Hopkins joins us. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. I hope you and your family and everybody that's listening are doing well.
So people who don't know, and it's now, people have such a long history of your boxing and all of your successes and an entrepreneur. But for people who may not know as much of the story, take us back a little bit. What shaped you into Bernard Hopkins?
What shaped me into Bernard Hopkins, it goes all the way back to Raymond Rosen housing projects, 25th, 24th, and 23rd and Diamond. Family roots on really both sides, mother and father. So I came up in a fighting family. My uncle, Juju Hopkins, Johnny Clyde, also Arthur McLeod on my mother's side, which was her brother, which is, of course, my uncle. It became sort of like a tradition in the family. Now, migrating to Germantown, my mother, Shirley Mae Hopkins, God rest her soul, she knew that eventually she had to get her 3 boys and 4 girls out of that project, housing projects. And she did. I mean, Germantown from North Philly, that was sort of like a culture shock. And you got to remember, this is finding myself, but in the same token, I'm in this environment that I felt that was I knew it wasn't the one I came from, but I had to grow into understanding that my mother knew that she had to get us out of there because of the gang war back then, and because of the I guess great opportunities that she had for herself working, things like that. But I still connected to my 6th grade teacher that taught us at Charles W. Henry School at Green and Carpenter Lane. Matter of fact, I put still today a playground there in honor of my mom that's still there, and a big plaque right there at Charles W. Henry School. At 9-10 years old when I was introduced to boxing through one of my uncles. So that amateur career was really short because of my behavior. Mm-hmm. That led me to the study center, Glen Mills, Greater Ford, Dallas. And of course, before you go to all those, Greater Ford and Dallas, is Holmesburg, which is on Charlesdale Avenue.
You talk about, Greater Ford and Dallas and what have you. And I bring that up because on this show, we like to show people that the success that people experience oftentimes came with steps. And now, because of the person that you are, the champ that you are, the businessman that you are, do you still share with young people that you went on that journey and had to kind of overcome that to be the person you are now?
Yeah, I speak often about it, and it's not in a bragging way. It's not in a way of glorifying those things, but they are part of my story. I mean, my story wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be legit if those things that I mentioned to you, those trials and tribulations, you cannot, and I will not let anyone take that out to make it seem that it started off the way it looks or the way it is now. And that's absolutely not the case. So yes, to answer your question longer than I expect, yes, I have to, because that's part of my story, the good, the bad, and there's some ugly there.
I remember, and we were talking about this, you would come on the radio show with a guy named Johnny Sample, who ran the sports show at the station where I was. I know that was your guy. It was a team of people all at that radio station where we all were. And I remember you coming to the station then. And it's interesting now seeing you now, because I'm sure you acknowledge this. You were not the guy that a lot of these promoters or other people wanted to deal with, because you did it your way. And your way early on probably cost you money, but it got you to where you are now. Do you remember that, and being that guy that they were like, man, this guy, he won't compromise?
Bill, do I remember that? No, listen. I remember that better than I probably can remember my Social Security number until I got up to 25 years old. I mean, these are things that's embedded in my soul. And I'm glad you mentioned it. You know why? Because there are multiple people that I'm still, including yourself, even though it's been a while, that remembers these moments. Yes, it might, and I know not might, it had cost me money early on in my career, because the gamble of those trials and tribulations normally defeats the person that's in that situation, fighter, business person, or any other person that's, I'll say, standing up for what he believes was right, going against a huge, powerful influence system and saying, listen, I'm going to continue to stay ready, not get ready. I'm going to continue to keep my eye on the biggest prize of ever, is these titles that I must keep to have a voice. I said, I got to learn this business, Bill, but I also still got to have some power by keep winning these fights to be a champion. Because I figured that everybody loves a champion. Everybody loves a winner.
His whole career was about betting on himself. But up next, when those big risks started to lead to big rewards.
All eyes was on this fight. I delivered, and you're right, I was a huge underdog.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Now, before the break, the champ was talking about all of the pressure to win his fights in the ring to maintain the respect that he needed to win the fights out of the ring. So let's get back to the discussion when he explains his fight with Felix Tito Trinidad right after September 11th and how it may have been his most important fight. Because you had to keep winning, because you didn't go along with the system. So if you lost and you weren't the champion anymore, then that leverage would have been done. I remember, and walk us through, and I know you just recently did a celebration of, what was it, how many years since the Trinidad fight?
21 years, yeah.
So a while back, you just did the 20-year anniversary, so I guess last year from the Trinidad fight. And even then, there was, all right, you're fighting Trinidad. He was the name, you were the champ. And the negotiations were all over the place. And you kind of said, look, here's how it's going to be. But even that was additional pressure on you, because everybody, all those people who wanted you to, in quotes, fall in line, needed you to lose. But you step out there. Was that the one that changed it in terms of, okay, now I've established myself. This was the big money fight. Now you have to listen to me.
The quick answer is yes. The motivation, I wasn't, as you mentioned, satisfied, even though when I say satisfied that I wasn't getting the respect. And also understanding that this is the man, undefeated, Trinidad, 35-0, 29, 28 knockouts, who just got a close decision with Oscar De La Hoya, who's my partner, and we business partners now. This is the guy that's going to get Hopkins out. We're going to get rid of our problem. Bill, I had to do whatever I had to do by any means necessary. Don King, and this is really one of the hearts of my documentary. Because why? Not because what happened. That got overshadowed by 9/11. How can I make this stuff up? How can I take this time of legacy of Bernard Hopkins and be down in Lower Manhattan at Lower Manhattan at St. Regis Hotel when the towers went down at the 5:36 in the morning, about 8:45, 9 o'clock. I was changing my clothes from running Central Park. Fight got canceled. 2 weeks later, all the politicians, the promoters, Don King, Butch Lewis, my promoter at the time, let's do the fight, the biggest event. Look it up. The next big event was a baseball game. History would tell you it's there. Somebody that's listening can tell you, yeah, Bernard, it was a baseball game afterwards. But the biggest event in New York City, of all places, in Madison Square Garden, the New York City 9/11 was part of my history, being a 15-1 underdog. Bill, look at the YouTube, the Golden Palace on my back.
I remember that. I remember the Golden Palace across your back, and you, for money issues, you basically were like, I'm betting on myself, and put the thing on your back, but also took like some portion of the purse and bet on yourself. I remember all that. And that was, in hindsight, that was a really bold move. What I didn't remember, and I'm ashamed that I didn't until you just started talking, so I was looking it up while you were talking. I didn't realize that Trinidad fight, that was 17, 18 days after September 11th. I didn't realize that. So that really was the biggest event, all those other things, but that was the first major event since then.
Bill, yes, all eyes, Bill, all eyes was on this fight. And it was my biggest underdog fight.
Wow.
I delivered, and you're right. I was a huge underdog. The reason I bet with Golden Palace, and they was paying me, they was getting a free advertisement, because the guy said, hey, dude, they was trying, and literally, seriously, you might think nobody would talk to me like this. It wasn't in a aggressive way. It was like, oh, well, why don't you put it on your shoes so we get a better, I guess, a better buck for our money. I took offensive to that. What do you mean put it on my shoes? No, just put it on the side of the shoe. Oh, what are you talking about? I said, let's bet that. That went so far. And then the HBO, Larry Merchant heard about it. Google that. Listen to the fight and listen to the commentating between George Foreman, Jim Lampley, who I still keep in contact with today, and Larry, the great Merchant.
Wow.
And Larry said, if anyone have seen this on his back so far, it's a gambling offshore resort, gambling line, Golden Palace, and it started melting away. I'm like, oh, this, because it had to last for 4 rounds or I won't get paid. So the sweat and the water and the ropes and the boxing, you can see the sort of like somebody's crying. It's like the black henna ink.
Insane.
It was black henna. It was black henna ink that they had to put on me the night before the fight. I had to sleep basically this way, Bill. I had to sleep so I won't get it off on the sheets.
You're a different dude. All right, let's jump into a couple more of these things. So that was the first kind of big money maker, the first "you're gonna respect me." Yeah, I'm curious because there's a quote that's attributed to you on social media. It sounds like you. I don't know if you said it. You have to assign your own value, because if you don't, somebody else will.
If you don't know your value, someone else will tell you your value and won't be the value that you're worth.
That's you. Quote. That was your quote. And that has gone.
But I'm known as a quote guy, though. Believe me or not, Bill. Seriously.
Mm-hmm. No. And that has gone global. Even then, and it seems to be your life. So you believed that. I mean, you were betting on yourself even then, assigning your value. So you've lived that. You believe that.
You remember this, Bill. I hear the warden, they call him superintendent now because the new the new generation. But back in the days called the warden. You'll be back in 6 months. You ever heard that in I'm in the proving business. Now, am I in the proving the people? No, I'm in the proving myself. I used to be, I'm gonna prove that I'm gonna prove them wrong. I can't let them control my emotions to do or not do, even though if it's justified. Bill, I have a consistent pattern.
Coming up, he was the oldest champion, fighting into his 50s. But the question, why?
Bernard, why did you fight so long? Bill, because I could.
You fought longer. You were a champion longer than anybody. But it's interesting because at a certain point, you didn't have to anymore. Like, at a certain point, financially, you were set. You were the businessman. You were the promoter. You know, you've made enough money that you're giving back into communities. So what was the reason that you would continue to fight for that long?
The reason was because I could and I can. I knew I can do it longer than anyone else done it because the way I felt. And I felt I didn't do enough. And this is going to really make sense to everyone that's listening. How I went against the system. Mm-hmm. How I didn't get paid or get the consideration, I'm going to use that word, that I should have gotten. You know what? In my mind, and where I was at, marketable, still valuable, I'm going to get what I deserve. So, Bill, the reason I went so long, and the reason I went so long with respect and dignity, winning, defending titles, breaking records, broke George Foreman's record, the oldest champion, 20 defenses as a middleweight champion, the only fighter that won four of the major titles. I still hold that record. Bernard, why did you fight so long? Bill, because I could. Well, why could you do this? Or why did you do it? Beyond that, they owed me.
Yeah.
For me, they owed me and I was getting it. And they was going to give it to me because I beat everybody in that division. They got to sit down now and do business with me.
Next on The Pulse, the champ shares his message for the next generation.
Losing is not losing. It's a lesson.
I mean, you've been in several halls of fame. You talked about the local one here in Pennsylvania. You've been recognized in several, but the, in quotes, big one just happened not that long ago. Tell me what it felt like. The guy whose career early on was, we don't want nothing to do with him. He's difficult. He's bucking the system. For a lot of those same people, you know, to be people who had to sit there and applauded you as you went into the Hall of Fame.
Every time I'm counted out, you can relate to it in your own personal life. Every time you count it out, you don't have to look at proving them wrong. Just be yourself. And it's for everybody. Keep your eye on the prize. Even when you get knocked down, get up until the last breath, the last energy and motivation to be what you set out to be. And you don't let no one rob you out of your, not dreams, your goals.
You casually mentioned the documentary that you're working on. What can you tell us about documentaries that you got going?
It's going to be many, multiple episodes. I think that people know me from boxing, know I've been incarcerated. That's not really a story. This documentary is going to show what? It's going to show strength. It's going to show determination. It's going to show don't let no one steal your dreams or try to talk you out of your dreams. Everybody don't have the vision that you might see. They might see different. Everybody that don't agree with you doesn't mean they're a hater. They just don't see what you see because they're not in that mindset. And they're going to see that I didn't let, even through my darkest times, losing my mother of breast cancer. My father and mother didn't see 60. They both died at the same age, except for my dad 1 year older, and I'm 57. My mom died at 57. All these things are being talked about. and put together in the right time, in the right place, in the right patience, and take a deep breath every now and then. The truth. The Bernard Hopkins story.
We end with the Pulse with Use Your Voice for Good. What do you say?
I'll say, be truthful about who you are and what you want. And always, always keep in mind, you only fail and lose when you don't try. You only fail and lose when you don't try. Losing is not losing. It's a lesson. The quote of the day, a loss is not a loss, it's a lesson.
You know, Bernard Hopkins has achieved on so many levels, but I think the thing that was most interesting to me is that he did it his way and continues to. If you would like to hear the entire interview, remember that the Pulse with Bill Anderson podcast is available all places where you subscribe to your podcast. Just subscribe. You'll get a notification every time it's available. If you'd like to reach out to me, I'd love to hear from you. So contact me on social media at Bill A. Fox 29. And until we come together again, I remind you whenever you can to use your voice for good, and have a good one.